This is rental car number 156, and today I'm driving the 2021 Chrysler 300S. This has a V6 and is a ton of fun to drive. It's also a four-door, full-size luxury sedan that retails for about $37,000. So keep that in mind as we're talking about drivability and looking at the interior, because this is almost a $40,000 car, and you should expect a lot from that. All right, so let's jump right in and talk about specifics. First off, exterior paint is Canyon Sunset, which is kind of nice. Interior is a black leather with white trim. Absolutely love exposed stitching. I don't know why. And the wheels are a 20-inch black noise aluminum, which I thought was maybe a special package, but this is actually standard on this trim level, and I think it looks fantastic. As far as under the hood, we got rear-wheel drive vehicle on this one, which shocked me because you don't see a lot of those anymore. The engine is a 3.6-liter V6 with a 24-valve VVT, and you get an 8-speed automatic transmission. Put that all together, and you get an impressive 300 horsepower at 6,350 RPMs. And as I said before, it is a lot of fun to drive. But all that power, there is a bit of a trade-off. So it does take regular unleaded, so no special fuel on this one, but your miles per gallon is fair. I mean, this is a larger sedan. 19 miles per gallon in the city, 30 on the highway with a combined rating around 23. Not bad. Gas cap is on the driver's side. That's always been my favorite. And your gas tank will hold 18.5 gallons of fuel. All right, so let's take this thing for a spin. I like to look at a couple of things. Handling at low and high speeds, acceleration from a stead stop and while moving, and then also cabin noise. So let's go through those one at a time. All right, so I'm tooling around a parking lot going about 24 miles an hour. Let's go around some of these medians. So at low speeds, it handles pretty well. I do feel like the car is pulling a little bit out of these turns. I kind of wish it was a little bit more precise, but that's to be expected with a car this large, because this is really a large sedan. Overall though, the handling is pretty good. I mean, when you want to go a direction, you move pretty quick. There's probably a half-second delay from the time that you actually move the steering wheel until the car reacts all the way. But overall, it's not that bad. And by half a second, I just mean it's a little bit loose. It's not quite as tight as some of the Japanese cars. So things like Nissan, I find to be extremely, extremely tight. So when you just turn the steering wheel ever so slightly, you're getting an instant turn, but not so with the Chrysler. That was the door locks, by the way. It's fairly responsive. I don't know, I'm just used to a different type of vehicle. Maybe not this big, and I don't know, I haven't driven a lot of American vehicles lately either, so maybe that's my problem. So at low speeds, I enjoy the handling. It's just a little bit less precise than I would like. All right, so let's get up to about 40 miles an hour and try handling at a higher speed. So I'm gonna go through these curves at over 40. And yeah, I can control things comfortably. I don't feel like I'm gonna get into an accident or anything, but the handling just isn't as precise as I would like. I feel like I have to kind of, I don't know, manipulate the steering wheel quite a bit to make sure that I'm hugging that corner the way I want to. Let's try a U-turn. Maybe that'll be a good example of this. So let's see if I can make this U-ey. Yeah, I was able to make it without drifting into the other lane, but I really did have to push the steering wheel all the way to the edge and hold it there for quite a bit to make that turn. So, I mean, this is not a huge complaint. It just feels a little bit different than what I'm used to. It's not bad, but it isn't as precise as I would like. Though I imagine if I'm able to drive this car for, you know, a couple of weeks, that I would get used to it and not have any serious complaints. So handling at high speeds, at least around 40 miles per hour, 45, is decent. I don't love it, but it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. Let's now try acceleration. Let me do another U-turn. A little bit better that time. I think I'm getting the hang of this. And let me get to a nice straightaway, and let's come to a complete stop. No one's behind us, thankfully. And I will mash that accelerator to the floor. we hit 45 pretty quickly, and the engine sounds just fantastic. It's big and loud. That's what I want. Wasn't bad. I'm excited to take it on the highway, which I will do in a second. But before I do that, let's try accelerating while we're moving. So I'm at 40. I'm gonna slam down on the accelerator. Did you hear that delay? Almost a full second and a half. Yeah, so the engine revs up and gives you all that power, but it does take a moment or two, maybe a couple of heartbeats, before you actually get jerked forward with the acceleration. Let me try that one more time, because it sounds so wonderful. Good sounding engine. I mean, pretty good responsiveness. For a car this size, I don't expect it to be instantaneous acceleration. So I'm fairly happy with this. Oh, that sounds nice, doesn't it? While we're cruising along through here one more time, let's pause for a second. I'm gonna shut up for a second, is what I'm saying. And let's just take a brief moment to view the cabin noise. So I am getting a little bit of wind. It's not windy today either. A little bit of wind, but it sounds really quiet. I'm actually kind of impressed with the sound dampening on this vehicle. I can hear the engine, which is what I want, but I can't hear the traffic out here without really trying. And that's nice. I don't know about you, but I tend to like quieter vehicles. Let's do one more acceleration up this hill. Oh, that's so enjoyable. And now let's turn it on the radio and see what it sounds like going at about 50 miles an hour.
Serving students who learn differently is helping students stay on track to earn their degree from home by enrolling in Beacon's Jumpstart virtual semester.
All right, so that was at a sound level of 8, which is actually pretty low, and we're going 50 miles an hour. And I was able to easily hear the radio, which is wonderful, because I want to be able to hear what's being said over the entertainment without having to crank that volume up so high that it actually physically hurts to listen to. So far, driving this vehicle is quite fun. I'm enjoying it. Let's close things out by taking it out on the highway and getting it up to some really high speeds and seeing how it handles. Alright, so thankfully there is no one behind us, because I'm going to be kind of a jerk and go through this toll booth and come to a complete stop. So there's a little bit of an incline, so not a fair acceleration test, but... Oh, did you hear the tire squeal? Oh, nice. 50, 60, 70, 80. Wow. That was kind of enjoyable. I really felt like the car was pulling me forward in my lower back, like it was shooting forward and pulling me with it, which for a large sedan is kind of outstanding. All right, now that we're going about 75 miles an hour, let's really test out handling a little bit. So I'm going to do some quick lane changes. Yeah, I feel totally in control. I mean, I'm going 80 miles an hour, and honestly, I could go a lot faster before I feel like this car would start to shake and feel, you know, that like you're reaching that edge where it's starting to get a little dangerous, but we are nowhere near that right now. Another thing I want to try safely, hopefully, is get to the side. Let's brake a little bit aggressively. Yeah. That came down to about 55 pretty quick without any issues. All right, last thing I want to do is we're moving right now at about 70 miles an hour. Let's change lanes and see if we can pass those two trucks up ahead pretty easily. 75. All right, I'm flooring it. 80, 90. All right, now we got to slow down, because no speeding tickets for me, please. But I think that gives you kind of a feel for how responsive it is at higher speeds. I mean, even at 80, within a second, you're getting more acceleration and the car is just pushing and pushing and pushing forward. I think getting to 100 in this thing would be effortless, which frankly is a little bit dangerous. All right, last test. So technically we're in drive right now and not in sport mode. So I have shifted it to sport.
Now let's try some acceleration again. So we're going 77. Now you hear how it kind of lags a little bit at those upper RPMs because of the sport mode. I generally don't like sport mode that much. I don't feel like it gives me that much of a boost. And it's kind of true on this car too. I mean, it sounds nice, but I think I prefer regular drive mode. So I'm impressed. I mean, handling at higher speeds is great. That acceleration is just a lot of fun. I'm kind of sold. This was a lot of fun to drive, and I just, man, is it me? Am I crazy, or does this sound just really good?
All right, so now that we've taken it for a test drive, let's jump inside and check out the interior. Here's the key fob. It's Dodge's and Chrysler's standard fob. Actually 5 buttons on the front. Unlock, lock, your trunk release, remote start, and then a panic button right here. And it does have an actual key on the inside should your battery die and you need to access the vehicle. Push button start on this one. Button is located right here on the dash. Let's turn it on. Pretty nice steering wheel setup. I say that a lot, but this one has quite a few buttons organized in a pretty logical way. So on the left-hand side, we have a directional keypad that'll help you interact with the large screen in the gauge cluster. I'll show you that in a second. Down below, we have our phone buttons to answer and hang up phone calls, and then your virtual assisted button right there in the middle. On the right-hand side, we have our cruise controls, pretty standard stuff. Where it gets interesting, at least for me, is that you do have paddle shifters up here and then additional buttons wrapped around on the back of the steering wheel that you can use to control the entertainment features in the large screen right here. And it's just really intuitive because you can manipulate both the paddle shifters and then those additional volume and mode buttons down below without ever having to remove your hands from the steering wheel. And I like that quite a bit. It feels like I'm a little bit more in control with the vehicle. One strange thing, at least for me, is that there's only one stalk on this vehicle. You'll see you can control the windshield wipers and your turn signals right here. On a lot of vehicles, you have a second stalk right here, but that is not available on the Chrysler 300. But you do get a rather beautiful gauge cluster accented in a nice midnight blue. On the left-hand side, we have our RPMs, and then on the right-hand side, we have our speedometer, and then that big screen right in the center. Right now, it's on the speedometer setting, but you can cycle through a lot of different features by using the directional keypads right here. Before we do that, I want to point out compass, upper left-hand corner, outside temperature, upper right-hand corner, and then your gauges for fuel and temp down here. And then your odometer right in the center showing that this is a brand new vehicle with only 691 miles on it. Not bad. I'm hoping to put a lot of miles on it before I return it though, because this is kind of fun to drive. All right, so let's play around really quick. I'm not gonna do an exhaustive look at this, but let's look at the screen right here together. And I'm just gonna press these keys right here. So on the speedometer screen, we can go up and down, and we can see vehicle information. So we got tire pressure, fuel economy with a range. So we can go 405 miles before we run out of fuel. And historically on this vehicle, it's getting about 24.2 miles per gallon. Not great, but not atrocious. Trip information, audio, messages if you connect your phone via Bluetooth, and then a setups screen. And then within each of these menus, you can also press left or right. But vehicle information, we can see things like coolant temp, trans temp, oil pressure, oil life, voltage, and then back to tire pressure. Trim info, a couple more screens, and I think you get the picture. So there are some things to play around with. Let's look really quickly, just together, at the setup screen and see, yes. So this is the standard screen you see on Dodges and Chryslers, and you can change the default stuff on the screen. So let me give you the example of the compass right here. It shows we're pointing south. That's the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to select that, and then instead we're going to do time. So you see I've changed that, and now it's 8:47 in the morning. It's actually wrong, but that's what the time shows. Or we can do range, right? 405 miles until you run out of fuel. I just like this a lot. You can also do it with the top right-hand corner, just because
I don't know, I don't like the default settings that often. Sometimes I like a little bit of customization, and you get that with the Chrysler 300. So nice gauge cluster, big, nice dials, fantastic screen in the center, all good stuff, at least in my opinion. Pretty standard stuff everywhere else around the vehicle. Along the door, on the left-hand side, you have door locks, window controls, your mirror controls, big latch to open and close the doors. Up on the dash, we have dials for headlights, interior lights, and then a button to open the trunk. And then down below here, we have a push pedal parking brake. If I can manipulate it. And then you have your hood release right here. Only strange things that I want to point out is that on the door itself, tucked all the way down here, is the fuel cap release. So that takes a little bit getting used to, but honestly, while you're sitting here, about to pop out of the vehicle, it's really not that difficult to press that button. But I have to admit, the first couple of times you fuel up, you do end up looking up here on the dash for what I think is the logical place for the fuel cap release, but it's actually tucked down all the way here. On the rear view mirrors, pretty standard, although you do get blindside detection. Let me open the window. That's this little triangle right here. When someone is in your blind spot, it'll illuminate in a yellowish orange color to let you know someone is there. And you get that same functionality on the passenger side rear view mirror as well. Up top, pretty standard stuff. Mirror right here. Hello. Garage door programmable buttons, interior light buttons, and then a sunglass holder. Rear view mirror, pretty standard. You get an assist and an SOS button right here, and then it has an automatic dimmer feature for you as well. And then down below, actually on the dash, is where things start to get a little bit interesting. You do have an analog clock up here on the top. Never really liked this. I don't really see the point of that, since you do get a digital clock, you know, what, an inch below in the screen, but it's part of Chrysler's look and feel, so you do get that right here. Two large vents on the sides, and then a really large screen in the center. It is giving us the Sirius XM Guardian Services screen. Let's X out of that. And then you can see on the bottom we have dedicated menu buttons, part of the touch screen, that you can use to cycle through menu, climate, additional controls for the vehicles, apps, your phone, and then your settings screen. And then we have the outside temperature up here, and those heated seats are activated right now, and that's why you get that icon right there. So let me just show you a few of the screens. So the media tab right here, we can cycle through radio and then other sources. I generally use my Bluetooth when I want to do that, but we're not going to hook something up just now. Climate screen, pretty easy to control. You see the heated screen, heated seats right here, and you also have your dimmer, auto dimmer feature right here as well for the rear view mirror. I'm going to keep that on, and then a settings screen that you can use to jump to the settings controls. So climate is a little strange. Usually you would see everything right here, and I'm guessing maybe that'll pop up if we turn the system on. Look at that. So all I did was press the button down here to turn the system on, and then we get the full climate controls right here. So if I were to press the off button, you'll see that those go away. So I don't know if you have had a digital climate system before in your vehicle. I have a love-hate relationship with this. So it's nice that you can interact with everything right here, but I do like that you still have actual manual controls down here to adjust everything. Because when you're driving, having to tab over to a screen, get to the place you want, and then make your selection is, well, it's just an extra step that I don't think is necessary, especially when you could just reach over here and adjust the dial really quickly while you're driving. But it is here, and it is pretty easy to use, right? We can adjust the direction the vents are blowing, adjust the temperature for yourself and your passengers, adjust the fan down here, and then control pretty much everything else at the top. Although I find myself using these controls down here quite more often. Control screen, we're back to those heated seat controls. Apps, there's not a lot of stuff here to play around with, but there's some additional settings screens that you can use to customize the vehicle a little bit more. And then there's a marketplace that you can go and download some additional apps if that's what you want to do. Although, quite honestly, if I'm interacting with this screen, it's usually because I'm connected to my phone instead. That gets us to the phone screen. pretty easy to use. I was able to pair my phone within about less than 10 seconds. I unpaired it for the video, but it's pretty easy. And then a setting screen where you can do a little bit more customization and control a few more features on the vehicle. So all in all, a nice screen, big size, easy to see in both day and nighttime hours, and some nice colors. And I do like the midnight blue that you see when you press all of the menu screens. So good screen. Not a make or break for me, though. So below there, I've already showed you, but we do have some additional buttons. Hazard button, screen on and off button, mute. You can shift to sport mode by pressing this button here or interacting with this strange little gear shift down here that I'll show you in a second. And you have these rubber casings on top of the dials that make it really easy to grip and give it a little bit more of a premium feel, which is nice. And then climate controls on the bottom, which I need to adjust because, man, it is getting hot in here. So you're seeing I'm pressing the temperature controls right here, and I'm going to lower it down to about 66 and do the same thing for my passenger. Actually, let's just turn the whole system off. Okay. Below there we have a small storage cutout. This is a brand new vehicle, so the stickers are still on it. You have a, let's see if I can get a good shot, power port right here, and then a small, and I do mean small, storage area right here. So here is my cell, it's pretty standard with a case on it, and it doesn't really fit down here. You can't close this, which is kind of annoying because there's also not really another good place for my cell. You do have the storage cutout right here, but I mean, my phone isn't even that big. It's a Pixel 3a, and it doesn't fit. It's I don't know, what do you think? A couple centimeters too large? So that's kind of annoying. There's this other cutout right here in between the two cup holders, but my phone is too wide for that, so it doesn't fit here either. So I've ended up just throwing it on the seat, which, I don't know, when you have multiple places to keep your cell, it's a little bit annoying. You also have the gear shift. It is a dial. Pretty easy to use. You just turn it to shift through the gears. There's reverse, neutral, drive. You cannot turn it all the way to sport. And I think that's a good thing. You get in the vehicle, right, and you're in park, you just flick it, now you're in drive. You don't always want to automatically go to sport. So to get to sport mode, you have to push it down, and then you can get into sport mode. To get it out, you don't have to push it down, you can just flick it, and you'll go to drive. So this, I have to be honest, takes a lot of getting used to. I do like a larger gear shift, it's just what I'm used to, but this works well, and once you get used to it, I think it's actually a little bit faster because you do just have to give it a tiny flick of the wrist to throw it in drive, and the same thing to throw it in park. So before I move on, I do want to show you reverse. So when you put the vehicle in reverse, you do get a rear view camera display. A little grainy in my opinion, but you can see the trees and the parking spaces behind me, and it's a rather wide view, so you can see cars coming from different directions. And then, let me reverse a little bit with you. And then the vehicle will indicate when it's getting close to an object. So I'm reversing right now, getting close to that curb. There we go. We're getting a little bit of feedback. And you're also going to get some radar up here, a screen that shows you when you're getting closer and closer to an object. So let me pull forward real quick, and then let's reverse again. And you'll see that as I'm getting closer and closer to that curb, you're going to get an orange light that pops up, just showing that we're getting close to an obstruction. You get that same kind of indication on the left and right of the vehicle, and then also in the front if you're pulling forward. These are nice because this is a larger vehicle, and at least for me, being a little bit new driving this car, I do need a little bit of technological help to make sure I don't bump into anything. And all of this is, you can turn it on and off if you don't like it, but I tend to like it. Although, I do wish this display was just a little crisper. Seeing the trees being a little bit pixelated, I don't know, it's a little bit disappointing. But you do have a rear view camera, and you do have guides. See, I'm turning the steering wheel, and you see those guides are turning as well. So if we were reversing into a parking space, you can use that to turn with a little bit more precision. So that's the rear view camera. Let me show you a couple more things before we move on. Cup holders I showed you before. Let me move my sparkling water out of the way. It does have a nice cover that you can use if you want to keep things a little bit more sleek or hide something. And then you do have a rather large center armrest with visible stitching, one of my favorite things. And then a simple control to open it up. And then you have a larger area with a removable tray with a change holder area. Oops, excuse me. And then you have USB, auxiliary jack, a second USB port, and then another power port down here. And then kind of a modular setup down here, so you do have a place that might be good for my phone. Now, jeez, my phone is still just a little too big. It's so annoying. But if you have a smaller phone, it would fit right there. And then a little bit of a shelf right here that you can use to kind of organize more things. And that whole thing comes out. And then you have a felt lining underneath with some areas to remove the whole unit if that's something you're interested in. Some screws. Let's see if I can put this back in easily. Alright, jumped into the passenger seat. I gotta say, this is a larger vehicle and it's pretty comfortable. These leather seats have a lot of nice cushion to them. Not a whole lot of amenities over here, but a couple things I want to share. Glove box with a shelf, so you have a place where you can keep that owner's manual up here tucked away, and then you have room for all your other stuff that you keep in here. That's pretty nice. Standard controls, door latch, window controls, the door locks, and you do have electronic seat controls even for your passenger, so that's a nice premium feature. And headroom, it's pretty good as well. Let me show you. So I'm 6 feet tall. I got that seat pushed back a pretty good distance. I'm tilted back just ever so slightly, and I still have, I don't know, maybe 3 inches of room between my head and the ceiling of the vehicle, and that's pretty nice. It's not always true when you're riding as a passenger, so I feel pretty comfortable, which is a nice thing. All right, I jumped in the back seat. I'm on the passenger side, and I pushed the passenger seat up probably more than I would feel comfortable sitting in it. And when I have it like that, I have a considerable amount of leg room. I mean, probably a good 6 to 8 inches, which is wonderful. If I push the seat all the way back, and that's the way that the driver's seat is set up right now, you'll see that I don't have a lot of leg room. There's actually not enough for me to comfortably get back there. Now, I mentioned this because if you're someone that likes to sit all the way back to be comfortable, you're probably not going to be able to have an adult passenger behind you, but maybe a small child. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to push the seat forward a little bit more than you feel comfortable so that people can get in the back seat. So keep that in mind. You do have quite a bit of amenities back here for your passengers. So these are nice leather seats, and they have pockets both on the passenger seat and on the back of the driver's seat. That's nice. Standard stuff like latch for the door, window controls, and then up top we have both an individual light and then also a handle with a coat hook tucked right here as well. Then you have on the center of the armrest for the front seat passengers 2 dedicated vents, and then also 2 USB ports right here. That's nice. And then you have a center armrest that folds down and has 2 cup holders as well. Looks like this should open up, doesn't it? The way the stitching is done. But it doesn't. This is just where you'll rest your elbow. And then final thing I always like to look at back here is car seats. You can see the car seat anchors right here, and the anchors themselves are not visible. So in a lot of vehicles you'll actually see the car seat anchor already. For this one you have to manipulate the seats, and then well, hard to see, but that anchor is right there. It's about 1.5 inches in, which means you can obviously set up a car seat if you want to, but it's not gonna be easy. So keep that in mind if you have younger children. And before I jump out, again, let's talk about headroom back here, because it's actually pretty decent. So, as I said before, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm sitting back here, and my head does hit the roof if I sit up like super straight, but if I hunch just a little bit, kind of like I'm relaxing back here, I do have maybe 1 inch, 1/2 inch of space between my head and the back seat. Now I say that's pretty decent because in a lot of sedans, when I sit in the back seat, I am definitely hitting my head to the point where it's uncomfortable. But I can sit in the back of the Chrysler 300 and be pretty comfortable, and could probably go for a longer drive without having to get out and stretch. So another good thing about this vehicle. Alright, so that's everything on the interior. Let's close things out by looking at the trunk space in the back. Now this is a full-size vehicle, so you get a nice big space back here.
There are also some hooks back here you can use to tie down things, and then the floor of this area does also lift up, and you'll find your spare tire down there, which is always great because some manufacturers are taking this away and not including spares as a standard feature. Also, if you need more room, you can pull on these little tabs right here and fold down the rear seats. That opens up a little bit more space so you can haul around larger objects, which is always helpful, especially when you got a full-size car like this. I mean, it should be able to at least do a little bit of hauling around. All right, so that is pretty much everything end-to-end on the 2021 Chrysler 300S. Kind of a big fan of this vehicle. So with all that being said, I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Ton of fun to drive, nicely styled vehicle, decent technology, and pretty comfortable. Really, my only major complaint is the problems with the handling at low speeds. So if that's not a deal breaker for you, you should check this one out. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining me, and hope you join me next time when I'm back renting and reviewing my 157th rental car. I'll see you then.